Good morning all and welcome to the Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting for Wednesday, the 1st day of December 2021. Welcome councillors and staff and members of the gallery. Call the meeting open, and we do have a request for leave of absence this morning from Councillor Henshin. He's unable to attend due to the floodwaters. And I'll move that be accepted. Have a seconder. Councillor Duff, thank you. Those in favour, carried unanimously. We also have apologies from councillors Potter and Froloff as they're attending the local disaster management group meeting this morning, but I expect that they'll be with us within the next 45 minutes or so, depending on that meeting. So that being the case, Mr. CA, can we just record an apology for them at this stage? Not a leave of absence as such. Recognition of the traditional owners. Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to acknowledge country and the traditional owners of the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka people, and acknowledge the elders, both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Okay, we have the agenda items there as presented. Councillors, are there any declarable or prescribed conflicts of interest that you wish to disclose? Councillor Duff.
I, Councillor Cathy Duff, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest as defined in section 150EN of the Local Government Act 2019 in agenda item 9.1, water connection at lot 1 SP 256027 4 Meek Street, Kingeroy. The nature of my interest is as follows. This declarable conflict of interest arises because I have previously, approximately 3 years ago, engaged their services. I wish to participate in the decision in relation to this matter. I acknowledge that eligible councillors must now determine, pursuant to section 150ES of the Local Government Act 2009, where I may participate in the decision about the matter, including by voting on the matter, or must leave the meeting, including any area set aside for the public, and stay away from the meeting while the eligible councillors discuss and vote on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. I'll deal with that shortly. Any others? No. Okay. As that's the only declarable conflict of interest, we'll now ask you to leave the meeting, Councillor Duff, and we'll attend to the matter. Just the regulations allow remaining councillors to attend to such, even in the absence of a quorum, in relation to conflict of interest, Mr. CEO. So, Councillor Shoemaker.
I probably had a question for Councillor Duff. I was just trying to understand what the extent of her engagement actually was.
I can clarify that. She's disclosed to me this morning that the fellow concerned is a tradesperson, a local tradesperson, and came out and did some work at her property, some trade services at her property. Yeah.
To what extent, Mr. Mayor? Just a small...
I think came out and did some work around the house, around the property, some trades work. I think, as she said, was it 3 years ago? Came out and did some trades work on the property. Not an ongoing service. I think it might have been just an incidental provision of trade services to the property. Yeah. Does the councillor have a particular view on that? I would like to move a motion that Councillor Duff stay in the meeting. Had we have a mover?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Okay, so we've had Councillor Jones move that Council resolved that pursuant to section 150 ES of the LGA 2009, Councillor Duff has a declarable conflict of interest in the matter, and notwithstanding the conflict, Councillor Duff may participate in the matter, discuss and vote upon it, accepting that Councillor Duff has no greater interest than any other member of the public. Seconder, Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Kevin, could you please ask Councillor Duff to return to the meeting? Thank you. Councillor Duff's return. Thanks, Liddell. Okay, thanks everybody. Let's move on now to item 5.1, minutes of the previous Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting, which was held on the 3rd of November, and the minutes are contained at page 5 of the agenda. It's recommended the minutes of that meeting be received. Do we have a mover for such? Councillor Jones, second, Councillor Duff. Okay, speakers? Any matters arising or questions in relation to the minutes? Nothing at this stage? Okay, well, we'll go to the vote. Councillor Duff.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a question about the redesign of Apex Park Cumbia, the possible relocation of overnight motorhome and camping, and the heavy vehicle truck decoupling and parking bay facilities. That's 6.8.1, and on that page is 13. And I'm just wondering when the community consultation is taking place, and is the divisional councillor going to be involved in that?
Councillor, it's not a correction to the minute, is it? No. Can we just clarify the minutes then and then answer the question, if that's all right? Yeah, no, just if we do them in that sequence, that'd be great. Be really appreciated.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. So we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. The minutes have been carried. Okay, fire away, Councillor Duff. Yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to ask the question about the Cumbia, the Apex Park camping ground, the truck decoupling, and the just when the consultation is going to take place, and if the divisional councillor is going to be included in that consultation.
Mayor Otter, thank you. I do not have a date for you in relation to the, sorry, Councillor, I have to take that one on notice. But in relation to the second part of your question, yes, of course, we'll make sure that the divisional councillor is involved as we do in those type of engagements, for sure. Thank you. Being a heavy vehicle related issue specifically, we'd also make sure that we engage with our portfolio councillor in relationship to it, because it's tie in with that whole heavy vehicle discussion, which is the subject of a workshop coming up soon. I know it's a broader discussion and more focused perhaps in the short term on Kingeroy, but certainly part of the overall picture and an important one. So thank you very much.
There'll be two portfolio councillors there, Parks and Gardens and Roads, General Manager here. Okay, all right, happy with that, Councillor Duff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, yes.
No more conversation in relation to the minutes? Everyone's comfortable with that? Hand over now to Councillor Jones to present the Roads and Drainage Portfolio Report, which can be found at page 18. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Gives me great pleasure to present the portfolio report for roads and drainage for the month of December. And this will be just a brief overview of what's been going on, the current design and planning projects that are currently underway, Bunya Highway medians and roundabout treatments, repair and upgrade of medians and roundabouts, status that Youngman Street medians 100% complete, River Road and roundabout community consultation complete and design 80% complete, Wandai roundabout community consultation complete and design 80% complete. Cumbia Streetscape Cumbia, rehabilitation of the CBD, design is 20% complete. So that may help Councillor Duff with her question there. There's design is underway and certainly the staff will take into consideration future consultation. Maidenwell Bunya Mountains Road, Wengenville, detailed design for TMR, design 30% complete. Our minor projects, Haley Street footpath, Kingeroy, replacement of existing footpath from Anderson's Carpets, design 80% complete. John Street, Kingeroy, design is 60% complete. And Kent Street, Wandai, design 90% complete. Current planned works for November, our capital works, we will be in Drayton Street, Nanango. That's the upgrade to parking configuration, including a school crossing and stop, drop and go area at the Nanango State School. That is expected to start sometime this month and be completed through the school holidays and completed in January. Jorgensen's Road, Glenview, pavement rehabilitation works underway. That should be well and truly underway, started in October and should almost be complete. We were hoping to finish that in November, but the weather hasn't been kind to us. Kent Street, Kingeroy, road widening between Carinya Street and Fitzroy Street, St Mary's Catholic College. Will start this month, again, another school area, and it will be completed through the school holidays. Kingeroy Transformation Project, the CBD upgrade, it's continuing along and complete in October 22. And just while we're there, I want to make a huge mention and congratulations to the staff, both from Fulton Hogan and our council staff for the work they're doing. They're working tirelessly out there, even in the rain, which is unnoticed and I think they're not appreciated for what work they're doing and the conditions they're working in to get that job complete. And I'm pretty comfortable in saying that we were a fair margin in front of schedule, but we've been able to absorb the wet weather and all that sort of stuff, and we're still on schedule or on a time frame, so we're still within that barrier. So I can't say a big enough thank you to those people involved in that. Memorandum Barkers Creek Road at Corndale, an upgrade, a section from unsealed to sealed standard between chainage 14.5 to 15.5. That will be completed through the Christmas period and hopefully completed in March. Springs Road at Chelmsford, seal pavement reconstruction. That should be just about complete, hopefully. Again, the weather is playing a significant role in these sort of projects to be completed if they are running over schedule. Weckers Road at Warrulan, seal pavement reconstruction. That should have been completed in November. Unaware of where we're at that with the reseal or the seal pavement construction there. Wandai Industrial Estate. I know we've done a massive amount of work down there, and again, a big congratulations to all the staff involved in that little project that has made a significant difference. Bitumen Reseal program, procurement evaluation currently underway, and that will run through from the start of this month, December, right through to March, and we'll be spending around about 1.2 million on the Reseal program. Our gravel resheeting program, Benair Road, Benair, Bouldry Road, Brooklands, Elbow Road, Sunnynook, Memorandie, Gordon Brook Road, Memorandie, and McNamara Road at Brooklands, Mount McEwen Road, Mount McEwen, Smith Road, Bowie, and Stonelands Road, Stonelands. Now, those are all supposedly works through November, December, and as you could well imagine, that the rain is playing great havoc with those projects being gravel resheeting projects. So, yes, we do need to put water into the gravel when we lay it down, but probably not as much as what we're receiving at the moment. Our patrol grading, we've got a list there: Alice Creek, Bowie, Boondooma, Braguda, Coolabunya, Geelong, Goodger, Haley Creek, Hodgeley, Kingeroy, Maidenwell, Pimpinbungie and Wengenville. Those roads there all going through November, December. Our roadside slashing and boom mowing. Again, a huge list there: Abbeywood, Bowie, Boondooma, Cushney, Crawford, Eastern Ango, Ellesmere, Greenview, Highsville, Johnstown, Kingeroy, Kinleymore, Cumbia. Maidenwell, Mannion, Memorandie, Mergen, and Ango, Pross, and right across the whole region. And again, I want to a shout out to these guys, the people that are doing the maintenance on the side of the road, slashing, whippersnipping, mowing, the parks and gardens guys. In this weather, please be patient with them because they are right under the pump, and the men and women out there do a wonderful job. And they always do all year round, no matter what. And I will stick by it, and I will continue to stand behind the staff. They do a wonderful job with the resources they've got and the expectations that people have on them. So, again, a big shout out to the staff that are doing a wonderful job trying to maintain our roads for safety purposes. Our roadside slashing, we went through there: Alice Creek, Barkers Creek Flat, Brooklands, Chelmsford, Eastern Ango, Glendevon, again, Corkall, Catawba, Merwood, MP Creek, Oakdale, Runnymede, Silverleaf, South Eastern Ango, right across the whole region: Stonelands, Sunnynook, Tablelands, Wattlecamp, Wheatlands, Windra and Maroondon. And there's a couple of charts there as well. Our unsealed roads at the moment, our patrol grading. We have a network of 1,448 kilometres, and to date we have 671 kilometres have been addressed. Sealed roads, our 21-22 slashing, 1,846 kilometres, and we've completed so far 553, and yet to complete 1,293. But again, please understand out there to the general public that the rain, when they slash it, it's like painting the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Once you finish, you've got to go back and start it again. So I just want to, again, continually support our staff internally and externally for what they do. They do everything they possibly can to work for the people that pay their wages. They are aware of that, and they do a great job. I would also like to mention our dams smashed through the 50% barrier last night, but along with the water going into the dams comes a lot of road damage. Potholes are everywhere. They're going to get worse before they get better. Can I continue to say to the people in the general public that are doing a wonderful job now reporting all the damage coming into our council staff so that they can get around. Our staff, I was out last night with my son and a couple of other people from Brooklands, removing debris and all that sort of stuff from bridges at 10:30, 11 o'clock. And yeah, just be patient. This is going to take a hell of a long time to recover from. There is damage out there. So I just say to the public, please be patient. Please work with us and understand that we can't control the potholes and everything else and the damage to the roads that come up now. We are working with the staff to try and put together a claim for flood damage and all that sort of stuff as we speak. So again, shout out to all staff. Fantastic rain, but there is a downside when we get the rain. The roads do turn into rubbish, so please be patient. So with that, Mr Mayor, could I Move that my roads and drainage portfolio report for December be received. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff, thank you. Okay. Comments? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you. I've got a couple of questions. I do certainly want to acknowledge the work that's happening across our region at the moment in response to the heavy rainfall. It's been really impressive. On Sunday afternoon, driving around my division, I noticed an extensive amount of cultivation that had been washed onto a major road here in Kingeroy. And first thing Monday morning, I saw the lights everywhere, and our crews out responding, scraping and cleaning all that up, which was just that prompt response to be out first thing on a Monday morning to a situation that obviously was in hand, but that immediate response is appreciated in the community. So thank you. I also want to acknowledge that in driving around my division, there's a number of drains and things that have been blocked over the since the rainfall began, and I've been really impressed in the time between actually reporting those issues and the response, and the fact that I've gotten a response to say, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, we've cleared that drain. Those kind of immediate responses in a rainfall event like this are just very much appreciated and recognised. I certainly love this report and it's really, it was great to read over this. Gone into that. I just had a couple of questions. On page 20, just with the Bitumen Reseal program, under the description it says procurement evaluation currently underway, and I probably just wanted to have a conversation about what that actually entails. And certainly for our Reseal program, I imagine the roads that are selected come from our asset management data on our work. So just probably wanted to understand that process and what's currently happening behind the scenes. And just in relation to, I noticed the long list of roadside slashing and boom mowing. Certainly appreciate, I know up in where I live, the crews have been out a couple of weeks ago, was very timely, spraying around all the guideposts and things, and I can report on my morning run this morning, the grass has died off nicely around those. So, and I can see there's a number of roads listed here. Just trying to understand in terms of the programming. Recognise we certainly won't be out on tractors with the rainfall at the moment, but just in terms of that programming, have we engaged more drivers in the process, responding to that extensive list of roads to be flashed? These are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Just in terms of the Bitumen Reseal program, so at the time of writing, we were in the process of procurement evaluation. So the latest today is we've engaged a bitumen contractor, RPQ, to undertake our bitumen reseal work. We are endeavouring to get that underway in December. Rain has obviously played havoc with that, so we're currently looking at that program and when those works are going to be undertaken. Certainly, a lot of the reseal preparation work that's been done in preceding the contractor coming and doing the bitumen resealing is going to need some additional work. I see quite a few potholes, etc. In roads that were pretty much ready for resealing. So in terms of the value, 1.14 million, around about half of that consists of bitumen resealing preparation work, and the other half is the actual contract for the bitumen resealing. So certainly there's a desire to get the bitumen resealing program done and wrapped up as soon as we can, but rain plays havoc with that. In terms of the particular roads, that's formed part of the budget deliberations at the beginning of this year. We presented a list of roads for consideration, and from that that budget deliberation, we have that list. So councillors should have a copy of that list. Happy to provide that if you don't. And that list of roads remains exactly the same as what it was at budget time. In terms of slashing, we do have an extensive program identified in that report, and obviously that's going to need some degree of reassessment coming out of this wet weather. Currently, I'm not aware that we've engaged additional support, such as contractors and that, but that's part of what we do. If we do need to ramp up with contractors, etc., then that's what we do. We normally have 4 slashes. At times over the last few years, we've ended up with 8 slashes all up, trying to come to terms with the slashing tasks. That'll still be a reassessment over the coming weeks.
Just a supplementary question, if I may, just in relation to that Reseal, the Bitumen Reseal program, just so I want to understand, is the reason why we engage a contractor, the reasons why we engage a contractor to deliver works, is that based around those sorts of things to do that? Or because we deliver the reseal and prep work, but then we engage a contractor to do the final sealing over the top. So just, trying to understand why is it we wouldn't do that work ourselves.
Yep, sure. So the bitumen, the actual activity of bitumen resealing is a specialised task. We don't have a multi-million-dollar bitumen sprayer that comes in and sprays. So that's outsourced to specialist companies.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. And the list, I just wanted to confirm, so the list of roads that we've discussed in our budget deliberations, they will be the roads prioritised for the bitumen resealing program. Yes. Yep.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just on follow-up from what Councillor Shoemaker was saying about the slashing, because every year I get frustrated about the slashing because we always get lots and lots of complaints. And so there's a couple of questions. Do we have the budget to engage contractors? Have we already flagged to the contractors that we're going to be looking to engage them? Because I know in the past there's been complaints from the contractors that they don't, it's just all of a sudden we want them. Have we prepared better this time? Just a bit, I would just like to unpack a bit more about where we're sitting with the slashing, because I think it'd be fairly obvious to everyone that there's going to be a huge issue with slashing as we move forward, and we're probably not going to be able to manage with our 4 slashes. So just wondering, are we going to be more proactive this time with our slashing program?
I would probably need to take that on notice in terms of the discussions that may or may not have taken place with our contractors at this stage. I'm just not across that. But typically these programs are done well in advance, and quite often are in expectation of exceeding the intervention levels for our grass. So you'll find that a lot of roads on that list haven't actually exceeded their intervention, their slashing, but there's anticipation that they will. So again, probably need to take that on notice in terms of the process that we're at with engagement of contractors. Right now, I'm not aware that we have engaged any contractors, but happy to confirm that.
I'm sorry, and the other question was through you, Mr Mayor, was about the budget. Do we have the resources to engage the additional contractors, or is that going to have to come back to council?
In terms of the budget, that's we manage that within the operational budget. So at this stage, we're not seeking additional funding for slashing. That's managed through the program.
Yeah, just further to that. So the slashing on the sealed road network is shown there on page 27, the graph. Thanks, Kev, for providing that. The kilometres completed to date, 553. We've got 1293 to do. That's 1846 kilometres. That would be based on one round of slashing. I'm wondering, is that one round of slashing? I think the 1846 would be. I know that in the budget we fund 2 rounds of slashing. I acknowledge that it's going to be challenging with the forecast continual rain throughout the course of the new year to get those slashes on the roads. And if that's the case, would you foresee that it could be problematic this stage, tracking to get those 2 rounds of slashing done, because we're now well and truly into the summer season, halfway through the year, and we're at probably about, what are we sitting there at, probably about 40%, are we? Yeah, so again, we've got a lot of work to still do, haven't we, between now and June to deliver that 2 rounds?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. I at this stage, I don't foresee any issues, bearing in mind that unlike the patrol grading, the slashing is generally a summer activity. So during the winter months, we're generally inactive. But certainly that's the intent, is 2 rounds of slashing. Again, if we need to call in additional resources, then that's where the contractors come in.
Yeah, probably just cognizant of the analogy that Councillor Jones raised in relation to the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Probably get that 1 round done, and then you'll have to go back and go through the list again, I'd imagine, by March, April, because the growth will be such that you'll just finish and have to start the circuit. Just wanted to make sure that we're in a position to be able to do that with the resources we've got, because we're going to have 3,700 kilometres to do. At this stage, we've only done 553. So, yeah. Again, keen to just see where we're going with that so we don't get caught out, I suppose, Manager. Yeah.
Yep, more than happy to take that those comments on board when we're looking at our assessment. And again, the intent is for 2 rounds. So, yep, thank you.
Thanks very much, Manager. Councillor Schumacher.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have referred back to my budget documentation, and I do remember in some of the CapEx discussions that we had, we looked at the asset management data, but I don't actually have the full listing of what roads were included in that Reseal program. So on page 95 of the budget, I can see that we've identified Reseal program, and it just says sealed network priorities, which is the $1.149,789, which is here in this report. So I probably do just want to understand if I've missed it in the budget documents. I know there were months and months of meetings and discussions. So would like to actually see what roads we have. What are those prioritised renewals for the Reseal network process?
Good question, Councillor Schumacher. Actually, coincidentally, jumped on the council's website, and for anyone watching or members of the gallery, that is on the website. I found it on the website this morning, which is great. Thanks, gents. Yeah, and I just thought I might just share that. Kevin, just stop me if you've got more detailed information and jump in and take over. But just to help, I suppose, out there a little bit off the website this morning, which is out there for the community. Council undertakes periodic bitumen resealing works on our sealed road network to rejuvenate and extend the life of the roads and streets. The bitumen resealing process consists of spraying a thin film of bitumen across the road surface and then adding small stones on top of the bitumen film. This forms a durable, waterproofed, dust-free layer on top of the road and can improve skid resistance reduce the occurrence of potholes and cracks forming. Typically, the useful life of a bitumen seal is 10 to 15 years, after which time bitumen resealing should be undertaken. I think it's probably also important to note that in Kingeroy residential areas and CBD, while that may be typically 10 to 15 years, that isn't necessarily the case that we get that life. Kingeroy is very much built on a swampy body of water, and that has an impact on obviously the underground surface that provides the foundation for the roads. So, and the list is here. Kev, have you got your list there for Councillor Shoemaker? You've got it there? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I have just downloaded that. It's great.
So thanks very much to staff for having that available to the public. If anyone out there is interested in knowing which roads are going to be resealed over the next 6 months, then that list is there. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Councillor. Any further questions or comments, discussion points in relation to Councillor Jones' report?
Mayor
Acting General Manager, yes.
If I may just add, the question was in relation to the role of the asset management system in the formulation of that list, and perhaps we didn't quite touch on that. Now, it's quite interesting, but we use our asset management system to assess our asset condition right across all infrastructure classes. And there's numerous things that we do in the road space that are in that renewal area. So yes, there's the seals that we talk about, but there's also pavement rehabilitation, which is equivalent in value every year. We spend about the same amount. Now, the role in the asset management system is to look forward at our conditions, see whether it's improving, decreasing, and allows us to make a forward strategy. And we've recently shared that again. So the asset management plan assists us in identifying the larger amount of budget that we would apply, and can change that strategically over time. It will identify those roads in lower condition to allow Kev's team to prioritise them. I would also add that there's further inspection conducted as Kevin's team formulates that list. So not only did we use the science in our asset management plan to identify budgets and requirements and a longer term strategy, we add local knowledge and inspection of the teams actually maintaining the roads as well. So we've got that theoretical approach, science-based approach, and we add to that, excuse me, the practical aspects of the road maintenance, those experienced people that are on the road. And I just thought I'd piece that together to you, to how the two components work.
Thanks very much, General Manager. Okay, so I think we're ready to go to the vote to accept the report. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, committee. 6.2 is the KTP project update. General Manager and our project manager has been up till all hours of the morning managing the flooding across our roads. So, Acting General Manager, would you be so kind to lead us through that update? It's at page 28. Thank you.
Certainly, Mayor and councillors. I will touch on it at a very high level, and the report is relatively self-explanatory, so I'll only just touch on key points. Our Deputy Mayor, in his report, touched on this project and the effort that's gone into maintaining progress on it. So despite having a wet week in the last 7 days, we have done significant work, and that is including asphalt work. We also have asphalt work planned tonight. So because of the scale of this project and the level of planning that's involved in it, coordination of it requires us to use all opportunities. So during the week, when there was a 4-hour window, which is the turnaround time for us to get material on site and place it, we did. On top of that, we then had to respond to the rain events, ensure that the pavement was drained. So all the team was wandering around town making sure where we'd milled out material against the new curb, that all the temporary drainage was working. I think even our General Manager, Meehan, was wandering around making sure that holes were open, which was a bit quizzical to some of the business people when they saw him doing that. But it's progressing well. They're doing the best that they can to maintain progress, which really has gone well. The point I'd also like to add, where if you see the delivery against program for each of the relative components, you can see that we are getting well progressed. And coming with that is the comment in the report that we are now seeing the transformation. There are sections of that project which you can see the results of. The work by our Parks and Gardens teams, the council roadworks teams, and the contractors' work is really becoming quite visible. So that is great. Conscious of that, however, is the massive impact that we're having on our business community and the wonderful cooperation from them. So we really owe it to them to get this work done as quickly and efficiently as we can for both cost perspective and to minimise wherever possible impact on them. I think that's the take-home message, Mayor and councillors. Yes, we have lost a bit of time with individual days in particularly our placement of both the structural asphalt, the EME2 and the ceiling. I know we've got some ceiling works to do over the top of completed works, EME2 works in coming days, and we'll also be doing some more milling out. So nose to the grindstone. I do notice a number of that team are also engaged in the LDMG. So we came off shift with project responsibilities and went straight into call out overnight. So conscious of fatigue management, we have a couple of absences this morning. I think James, if he's not here yet, will be here soon. And then he will need to go off because he was up during the night as well. So it's a bit of a balance between our community obligations with the disaster management as well as the project. But all in all, it's a positive report, Mayor, in relationship to the progress this month. Thank you.
Thanks, General Manager. Do you have any questions or observations? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, just certainly spent a lot of time around the project. On page 31, the comment, the KTP team would at this point like to acknowledge the efforts of our staff and contractors, not only for their personal pride, but their personal time and effort in delivering on a tight timetable and tough weather conditions at times. And certainly, I know speaking to the concreters on the job earlier this week, it's extraordinary to see them boxing up and pouring concrete in the torrential downpours and between torrential downpours. Really a credit to the whole team who have, we recognise the impact on business, but they're certainly doing their very best to return to finish the project. And it was quite remarkable if you stand at when you talk about the transformation, standing just at the corner there in front of Leonard's Florist and looking down the footpath to think, only a matter of a week or so ago, we're looking at boxing and mud and all sorts of things, and to stand and look down the path now and see a fully new footpath there, it's extraordinary. So thank you to the team. Thank you for the pride they are putting in the project, and I know they are. I know talking to some of the contractors and the workers on site there, they're all very proud of being able to do a project like this in their hometown, and I just think it's extraordinary that despite the torrential rain and challenges that they have been there, and everyone's certainly doing more than their fair share of hard work. So thank you to the team for making that happen.
Okay. Well, we have the recommendation that the report, the council note the attached KGP update report for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconder. Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Item 6.3, Roads to Recovery Program status update at page 38. General Manager, to you again, and Manager Kevin, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is really just an information report. There was a request to provide some information on the federal government's Roads to Recovery capital works program. The grant funding for this financial year is $1.9 million. Currently spent around about $1.1 million, and I've attached the gravel resheeting program, primarily gravel resheeting, which is the bulk of the Roads to Recovery program for this financial year, and it just gives a bit of a status update on the various projects. And that's primarily the report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Manager. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, just a question. Thank you for the report. Just in terms of the criteria, I was wondering, what is the criteria for Roads to Recovery grant allocation? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. The criteria is quite broad. Obviously, it is roads focus, but potentially, I mean, historically we've used that funding in the unsealed and the gravel resheeting space, but certainly any of the roads work that we do would be in the CapEx space would be eligible. So whether it's sealed, unsealed, floodways, curb and channel, etc., that they would all be eligible through Roads to Recovery.
Yeah, thank you. So the actual funding program itself is basically just a contribution from the government roads program. Have I got that right? So then we decide essentially based on the asset management data. And my apologies for rambling, but I'm just slowly learning and gaining more knowledge in this space. And so with the asset management data and our hierarchy of roads and all of these things that we look at, we then allocate the R2R funds based on the highest priority needs. Is it fair in saying that, or are there other criteria that's applied to the process? I guess I'm just trying to understand the different funding streams and certainly how we decide which roads are funded by what stream and that looks like in a more holistic way. So always learning on the job here.
So this year we've presented council at budget deliberations a gravel resheeting proposal with a list of all of the roads with the total value of work. We actually haven't at that stage hadn't specifically divided up the Roads to Recovery funding per road. It was the allocation to that particular gravel resheeting essentially. And so come budget approval, this is the overall allocation, and then from that list of roads, essentially, we generally try and utilise the grant funding first and get that completed. There still is an approval process through the federal government to submit particular roads, identify where they are, what work is required. So there's still that behind the scenes work essentially. Yeah, that's. I hope that provides a little bit of information on that.
Yeah, certainly. I think with the budget deliberations, because they are sort of these large projects or funding allocations, it can just it's great to understand how these things actually roll out and how we're applying them. And yeah, I certainly acknowledge the work that's gone into asset management plans and in the roads hierarchy and that thinking. And I guess, yeah, I'll be paying much more attention this year when it comes to budget in terms of how we actually are all aware of this process. Yeah, I can see it's ever changing, but I can also see with the data that we have and the local knowledge that we have, we should be in a pretty good position when we know that's an allocation to identify, well, what are our highest priority needs we'll be funding. So yeah, I look forward to further conversations in this space around that more holistic view of the outcomes of what we're allocating through our budget to to roads and different standards of roads, but then how that plays out on the ground. Putting all these pieces together 18 months in council, it's still, every day is a new opportunity to learn something new, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Manager. Any further matters to discuss in relation to the Roads Recovery Report? Okay, the report's been provided and recommended that Council notes such. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, second to Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Carry unanimously. Thank you all. We'll proceed and we'll just acknowledge that Manager Darcy, you will be across the next items, 6.4 to 6.7, but I think we should proceed nonetheless. 6.4 is this George Street car park, Kingeroy, at page 40. I think, General Manager, if we can perhaps have you give us a high-level overview of that and we can move through it as best we can. Thank you.
Mayor and councillors, the information that we've presented in the report as requested has not advanced significantly since the report we've previously provided in relation to George Street. At this point in time, it hasn't had a budget allocation. It hasn't progressed in its past that preliminary planning point. So we've taken the opportunity to revise the information and re-provide it. I think council is, from the previous report, is probably well aware of the benefit of that potential project, but it remains with other numerous good projects for your consideration as you're going forward. So I think there was an indicative layout. I know that we had discussions at the time with the divisional councillors. I think we had a briefing specifically before our last report on that, as in preparation for the last report, and a number of items are listed there. The information that we provided previously was based on that layout, so we haven't really got any better information than that. I think it was 750,000 was the crude budget estimate at that point. I think that's what remains on our consideration list for the funding programs, and that we will come back to a future meeting of council with more detail when that work is progressed.
Thank you very much, General Manager. Okay, do we have any matters to discuss in relation to that report? Councillor Jones.
No, Mr. Mayor, and I take the comments of our General Manager there. Me personally, I think this is a high priority. I think we need to acknowledge the significance of this car park and the benefits to the Kingeroy CBD upgrade, along with the rail trail and everything else that's been proposed to be completed in there. This has a win-win for everyone, and I really do, and I will be pushing very hard and fully supportive of this project to be considered and funded through the LRCI funding. I think this is one of the significant programs in our region, and I think it just ties in perfectly with everything that we're doing in the Kingeroy CBD. Yes, we've lost 99 car parks, but we have the potential 50 to 100 metres away to create 120 plus. Not only does it support the CBD upgrade, it supports the rail trail redevelopment and all that sort of stuff that's proposed through that corridor that we're trying to fix up now, and it will then tie in with the hopefully successful conversations we're going to have and continue to have with Main Roads in regards to the roundabout and everything else on Youngman Street, and I think it's Knight Street, King Street. So yeah, I will be fully supporting this and pushing very hard for this to be funded in that LRCI funding when it comes up, or Works for Queensland or whatever. I think this is a major project for our region.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you for the update. I just not aware of the budget estimate, but you know, if there's more information about that, I look forward to seeing that when it comes through. Certainly, what I am learning is very quickly in any sort of roads infrastructure. Just question in relation to what I have noticed is we are stockpiling quite a lot of material up in that area as part of the KTP project. And it was always sort of my understanding the reason for that was that would help in terms of those preliminary works, using recycling some of that material from the KTP project could actually have a cost benefit or would support actually the delivery of this project. So just really wanted to understand that I'm across that, right? And that the opportunity really on the back of the KTP project to use recycle some of those materials from our CBD construction car park is still sort of a goal and still aligned with that project in the longer term.
Yeah, that's certainly correct, councillor. If there's pavement material that can be reused, doesn't necessarily need to be associated with George Street, but the proximity makes sense that if we can reuse that for a project that's very close, then we should do that. So, yep.
And so that material, just trying to understand, essentially provides like the base or the foundation for the car park on top, yes? Because it was my understanding there is some sort of disparity in those materials that we are pulling out of the street. So we're still confident that those materials will be suitable for the basis of the car park, I guess.
Yeah, there will be unsuitable material, and there will be some really good material that we can utilise. So that'll be an assessment that we'll make as to how suitable the material is. Yep.
Yeah, sorry to be rambling. I just really would like to understand that, like in terms of that costing of that project, when you bring that forward, the opportunity to move on that and recycle some of those materials, what the benefit of that project will be. I think if we move on that now rather than wait for a period, or what our alternatives might be, I imagine material out of the area or stockpile it in our CBD for a period. So yeah, I guess in terms of making that decision, I'd just like to understand some of that preliminary planning better.
Mayor Otter and Councillor Shoemaker, probably answer that one from a little bit higher level, if I may, rather than specifically to the project. So as Kevin said, there'll be all sorts of material coming out. The unsuitable material may be placed there for a short term for ease of construction process and then subsequently moved. We minimise that, but the uses of that sort of material, our colleagues at the landfill may use it for cover, night cover, or other general fill material. Then there's the pavement materials that get milled out, which are normally got a mixture of different gravels because of their construction over the years, and probably recycled asphalt all mixed in it. Some of those materials are awesome for building construction pads, for doing earthworks, and those associated things. So we're not suggesting at all that the materials that would be recovered would be used in the pavement of a new car park. They will always be new and fully compliant materials. However, instead of having to source and deliver to site materials to do earthworks, then that's suitable. If I may, if you have the patience, any project in the vicinity that can benefit from that material will be used at the time of construction. Bearing in mind that at this point in time, we don't have a budget for that particular project. We would not buy material for another adjacent project anywhere in Kingeroy or on the boundary. When we could use it, we would use it. So would we lock the material in for a future project? No. But would our crews that are responsible for many jobs make the best use of that at the time? Absolutely. So that's a generalism. We would apply that to lots of projects. We would set suitable material along at any roadworks project, and we could even use it for, in the unsealed road network, we could use it for construction pads, we can use it for any of those sorts of things to replace the purchase of commercially provided material. So offsetting significant costs wherever it's best used. So it's very much a generalism. So I don't think council would expect that we'd quarantine that material specifically for a project if in the short term there's another need. So we will make those decisions operationally on a day-by-day basis to the benefit of council's delivery wherever it's being done at the time.
Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just going to flag that on what Councillor Jones said. I just think that we lost money with the additional funding we had to put towards the KTP on our Reseal program, and I'll be very strongly debating that we put that money, the George Street car park money, and the bulk of the LRCI money towards reseals, because I think that that's right across our region, that we need to put more money into our reseal program. Thank you.
Just a
Thank you,
point of order, can we clarify that? I'm not sure that's entirely correct.
Yeah, just put forward your question. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Just want to confirm what you said in terms of we've lost money from reseals, because I know certainly through the budgeting process there were discussions, but I don't fully understand what you've just said, sorry. And I just want to clarify what that is actually, the true and correct. So you just said we lost money from Reseal.
Yeah.
So I just want to
Perhaps I could
clarify
Yeah.
what it is that you've stated, because I'm not entirely sure that's true and correct.
Yeah. As the finance portfolio holder, I might just clarify, to my knowledge, general managers, $2 million was allocated from the Reseal program to the KTP as part of the additional 2.8. That was my understanding that was given at the time, the information I received. Is that not the case? I know I've got a request for information on this. I haven't looked at it yet, but I think we need to clarify this because that was my understanding. When one looks at the budget, it shows that the $2 million is in the budget for 2021 for pavement works in KTP, and my understanding was that that money was taken away from the bitumen sealed work, pavement and resealing for the sealed network, Kevin. That was my understanding. But please correct me if I'm wrong.
Probably just confirm the difference between just the Reseal program and the sealed road network funding. So there's significant investment in the sealed network through asphalt renewal, etc. The Reseal program itself is much less than previous years, but the actual sealed road program contains renewals such as your asphalt work, etc. So when we look at reseals in isolation, it's it probably just needs to be in conjunction with the amount of money that we're spending on the sealed network.
Yeah, so certainly was my clear understanding that the $2 million that went towards the 2.8 did come from the sealed network, the regional sealed network. That was made very clear here in council. I'm just reading the response to the RFI that came out just to clarify, but that was certainly my understanding. Very clearly that was the case.
I would like that question to be taken on notice and a report brought back to council, just to clarify what Councillor Duff's actually said there, and across what budgets as well, because the budget discussions for the KTP project, I understand, have been, long time in the working, and certainly I would like some more information before we have any discussions of that nature.
Mayor,
General Manager, thank you.
certainly we'll take that on notice. I'll work with my colleagues in finance on that. But reinforcing what Kevin said, we add together asphalt reseal and hot bitumen reseal together in the network. Obviously, KTP gave us the opportunity to do very extensive AC sealing works that goes on top of the new pavement. And we have a look in Glendon Street and generally Kingeroy Street, you can see the condition that it's in. So those streets are also on our program, and we do move money backwards and forwards. We also move money backwards and forwards with pavement rehabilitation. So in rough terms, the figures I've been used with the advice of my learned colleague to my left have been roughly $3 million in the resealing works, roughly $3 million in the pavement rehabilitation works. So we basically use those as a sealed road network, and they all relate to either repairing the seal, be it chip seal or asphalt seal and repairing the pavements underneath. So they add together and they will move. I would reinforce that we move them between those, but we will come back with the details that you've requested.
Yeah, thank you, General Manager, if you could, and happy to be corrected. But I think, yeah, that was certainly my understanding. You're saying that we had $3 million for reseals, as you've said, of which 1.149 million has been retained and 2 million was applied to KTP as part of that additional 2.8. I'll be very surprised if I'm corrected on that, because that's the clear understanding that I had. And I can remember General Manager Meehan sitting there and saying those exact words in a meeting. And I have got a request for information in to have this clarified. So that response may be here, but once it's here, I'll make sure it's circulated, as we would do, to all councillors to clarify that. Look, I am far from convinced that $800,000 commitment to George Street is something that is, I'm far from convinced that I'll be supporting that. I'm very concerned about the amount of flood damage that's been done to our sealed network across the region. Now, I'm very concerned that, you know, we certainly won't know for a couple of months as to whether we'll get any recovery funding for that. And I think we need to proceed with extreme caution here, Council. If we're going to achieve our 90% sustainability ratio on our road network, we're not going to be able to do it with, in my view, our depreciation, because we haven't been able to fund our depreciation in this year. I think the General Manager of Finance would confirm that I'm correct in saying that. If that's the case, we're going to have to try and meet that sustainability ratio through external funds. And I believe that with the deterioration that we have seen, the impact on our sealed network is going to be beyond the affordability of this council. We're going to need recovery funding to rehabilitate the damage caused by the floods to our network. It is beyond our financial means, from what I've seen. I would stand to be corrected. Now, if we don't get that funding, we are going to have to then rely on other sources, because our sealed road network, we've all been driving around, is in one heck of a mess. So I think before we sign up to new shiny projects, it's nice to cut a ribbon, but I think we need to be really sensible about making sure that we're looking after what we've got and keeping our sustainability ratio in order, making sure that we're renewing those roads that have been awfully damaged by the floods. I'm not going to be keen to make a decision on this until we see the outcome of that recovery funding, because we are really going to struggle to rehabilitate these roads if we don't get that recovery funding. I can't see how we'd have the capacity to do it. The other thing is that is also, of course, you know, I'm also concerned about our depreciation ongoing. We have to be very conscious of the whole of life cost of these assets, and that will add to the value of our network, add to the value of our car park infrastructure, and will give rise to additional depreciation. We are, as an organisation, already struggling to fund. In fact, we haven't been able to fund our depreciation. New assets like this will only further exacerbate that. So what I'm saying at this stage, my view, is that we just need to go really slowly here, go really carefully. I know it'd be lovely to jump in and do the car park in George Street, but I think in light of what's happening right now, particularly with the flood dam, we just need to be really careful, because we're going to be under a lot of financial pressure with the damage to the roads. And we do have a big road, a sealed road network to try and manage. So I'd be just counselling everybody to let's please proceed with caution, not get too excited at this point in time, and I'd like to see us take our time on this decision. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, they're fair comments. Don't disagree with you at all. And our road network is in a hell of a mess at the moment, and hopefully we will be successful with funding and all that sort of stuff. And this will be the significant benefit of the Rackus machine. This is where this Rackus machine and the investment we made a few years ago will come into real benefit for us. But just going back to the just the comments, and I'm happy to take this on notice, but just correct me if I'm wrong, the $2 million that we put aside to come in, Glendon Street and Alfred Street were roads that needed asphalt and all that sort of stuff upgrade, because they were highlighted as a priority. They were falling apart, particularly Glendon Street and all that sort of stuff. So is it correct? Now, I'm happy to be corrected here. We brought that forward to tie in with the KTP project and all that sort of stuff, knowing, and we put some other projects on hold. Well, just like you said, Mr. General Manager, we flipped them. We brought the KTP roads that were concerned into the KTP project with the funding, and then we put some other roads back. So I really struggle with the fact that we're losing money there, because that money that we would have spent 2 years ago or 2 years' time on Glendon Street and Alfred Street is simply being brought forward, and the money that we have spent on them will now be, is that like what you're referring to, the flip? So those roads were needed and high priority, so we just brought them forward so that they're tied in with the KTP. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Otto, Deputy Mayor, yes. So we did have the need to resurface, that's the re-asphalt work for those particular streets, and you can actually easily see visually that situation, for example, in Glendon Street now. And we did leverage additional funds from every source. So we had TMR funds. We certainly did bring forward asset renewal works in the water area as well to make sure that we did it, and we added to that the additional funding. So there was change of priority to allow the work to be done in a cost-effective way. It's no good to do the works and then come back and do the replacement of water mains 3 years later. So we did change order of works. I will provide the detail that the Mayor and Councillor Shoemaker have sought in the real numbers, but most certainly with the reconstruction of those pavements, we brought forward what would have been a commitment to resealing those roads with asphalt in the program. Now that would come out of, I'll defer to Kevin, if you're doing an asphalt in our budget, would the asphalt sit in that sealing program normally?
Normally it would be in our pavement rehab program, so in the sealed network obviously, but not specifically in the reseal.
Yeah,
It's probably the only point of clarification. My understanding was that it was in the sealed network. Not sure whether that was what proportion was pavement and what was resealing, Kevin. So anyway, nonetheless, look, Councillor Jones, you've also, I think we do need to be careful about our reseals. You know, you've made comment on a number of occasions that we're going to turn our attention from gravel to bitumen seals, and the money will turn around. But I do note in the forward budget this year we've got in this current year 21-22, we've got 1.149 million in the sealed network reseals, and in gravel resheeting we've got 2.02 million. Next year we've got 2.3 million in reseals and 2.9 million in gravel resheeting. In 23-24, we've got 3 million in reseals and 4 million in gravel resheeting. So I'm just struggling to see there, General Manager, where, as Councillor Jones has indicated to Council previously, where we're seeing that balance of the funding tip over into the reseal. And the only reason I'm raising this is because I am concerned about our sealed network across our region. And I'm, sincerely and genuinely concerned about it. So I'm keen to see that clarified in coming council meetings over the next few months. And I think we're going to need to address that when we look at our external funding and when we look at our 22-23 budget and our forward program on that. What's going to be the allocation between gravel resheeting, because the next 3 years is showing still a heavy skew towards gravel resheeting and much less emphasis on resealing, which is in contrary to what Councillor Jones has indicated was going to be our priority, noting that I think we're already, are we 4 years into our gravel resheeting? 3, are we? I thought we started in 2018, so I thought we're in year 4 now. But anyway, General Manager, I appreciate your views on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Otto. And I do note the point that you make, and specifically in the third year of our defined budget, you can see a large proportion of funds identified. I think it's a $4 million round figure. I might say that we've rounded some numbers together there, I think, without a lot of attention in the outer year, which of course is subject to your budget considerations coming up. We did, however, present to you a workshop in relationship to our road strategy. And as part of our response to this question, I will bring that information back before you. In that workshop, which was a state of the roads type briefing for your strategy consideration, we saw there that move back to that $3 million Reseal $3 million rehabilitation for the seal network, and the unseal network ratcheted back after the very effective focus on it, back to also that $3 million range. So with that being the case, I'll represent that strategy position, and we as officers would certainly be promoting that in budget considerations this year when we're back before you as you're considering your budget for next year.
Thank you, General Manager. And I can clarify that in the budget it does say under the line item of bitumen resealing / rehabilitation, $2 million in KTP in 21-22. The other thing is, the budget doesn't show any projects in 22-23 or 23-24 in rehab. It only shows those amounts of 2.3 and 3.1 on resealing. So there's no pavement rehab funding in there as the current forward budget is adopted, but fully understanding that that is still open. Those forward programs aren't locked in. Looking forward to the workshop, and particularly looking at this in relation to the asset management plan, where we can start to get some science around the condition of our seal network in that decision-making process. So thank you for that. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just think it's very important. Like, we're tabling here a report update on the George Street car park for Kingeroy, which is a project that has been discussed in this council chamber before, certainly long before today. And I guess my concern is that we are mixing issues here, and it's easy for our community to take some of these things out of context. So I do think a workshop's really important. I also want to note that the $2 million number that you're throwing around here is available depreciation from the information that I requested that I've found in my inbox here. That $2 million was from available depreciation, and from your most recent RFI, the funding strategy was no different to the funding strategy that was applied to the Mergen CBD footpath project. It was exactly the same. And from the most recent information provided from Manager Jed, it demonstrates that that $2 million will actually be taken over the next 2 years, and that's available depreciation for those assets. And I guess my point is, I don't want to see, we already know that some of these issues, roads, what I've learned in my short 18 months, is a very emotive issue. Roads mean different things for different constituents. And I just want to caution council. I think what we're doing here is we're having mixed conversations. We're throwing around numbers. And in many ways, I think it's our role as leaders to certainly have honest conversations, but not to mix these issues. We need to put forward a strategy, and certainly I share concerns about the Reseal network. We've discussed this for some time, and we note that the focus has been for the former council, which Councillor Kathy Duff and yourself, Councillor Jones, were a part of, the focus was on our rural roads, and certainly you can see from the asset data that's been presented that we all have available in those asset management plans that we're at that tipping point, and the strategy has been around sweating those assets for as long as we can. We're now at a point where, yes, you're right, Mr. Mayor, the focus, I believe, does need to be turned to our sealed network. And so I look forward to further discussions and workshops about that. But just want to caution council, I think in my 18 months, what I've seen is we just we need to be a little bit more strategic in some of these conversations and stop mixing issues and budget allocations, because that's how we all get lost and the wrong information is provided to our community. And in my opinion, that is dangerous. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Council. I would certainly dispute your allegation that wrong information is being provided. I think the issues are very, very much associated. If we're going to spend $800,000 on George Street, that's got to come from somewhere. It's being proposed from LRCI funding. LICR funding is part of the external funding that is available for renewals on road networks. So I think the two are intrinsically linked, because at the end of the day, the money from George Street has to come from somewhere. And it's we have to look at all those priorities. We have to look at the resealed network as part of our LLC allocation. So I think you can't have this discussion without connecting the two. And as for throwing around numbers, the $2 million is exactly the number stated in the budget. And I would also dispute that Glennon Street and Alfred Street reseals were going to cost $2 million. I don't think that was the amount that would have been in the budget for those reseals. I'd be very surprised if that's the case. That seems to be a large amount of money to reseal two streets. When you look at the other 1.1 million and how many reseals it's doing across the network. Now, I acknowledge that that is a high priority road and has asphalt as against the normal bitumen surface, but I would dispute that the whole $2 million was assigned in a forward program to Glennon and Alfred Street. But nonetheless, looking forward to that information coming forward into the future, because I think our community do need to hear these conversations. I'm really keen to make sure that they do and that we take our time carefully and engage our community in where we're prioritising these matters. That being the case, we do need to wrap up because we have got guests. So we have a recommendation that Council note that this project is not currently funding and being considered under available external funding programs. A concept and estimate of costs will be brought back to Council at a future infrastructure standing committee meeting. So that is the recommendation. Do we have a mover for such? Okay. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones has moved. Councillor Shoemaker has seconded. So I'll put this to the vote. Those in favour? Okay. Those against? Okay. So we have 2 in favour and 2 against. Okay. General Manager O'May, General Manager Jarvis, Corporate Governance. Our CEO's had to leave the room due to a disaster management matter. Where do we go in relation to this now?
Yeah, through you, it'll come back to yourself as chair for the casting vote on to break the deadlock.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm going to vote against and exercise the chair's casting vote here, and the motion has been defeated with the chairs through the chair's casting vote. Thank you. Thank you, General Manager. Okay, let's now move I'll now move the procedural motion that we closed the meeting for morning tea at 10:31 a.m. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll resume at 10:50 a.m. Thank you all. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I'll now move that we reconvene the meeting. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.5, John Street, Kingeroy, Infrastructure Planning Design Program at 43. We'll rely on you here, General Manager, if we could, to the best that you can. Thank you.
I might add, Mayor, that it would be the southern end of it may be impacted at some period by King Street and highway intersection works. It's right at that. It's right at that point. It connects in a quite convoluted connection there. So some of our consideration relates to, long-term future views in that part of the world, but the rest of it is pretty much straightforward rehab.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. I've just noted in the report there, it says from Freeman's Lane to King Street. Should that not be Dooncoona Street down to King Street from north to south, or have I misread that, the meaning of that? Kevin, could you clarify? Thank you.
Yeah, you can see that that map which shows the extent of the work. So that's the most serious section from Freeman's Lane down to King Street.
Oh, yes, I can see that now. Thank you. So that's the scope of the works at this stage. Thank you. Well, thanks very much, gentlemen. Any points of discussion around the table in relation to John Street? Okay, so we've got the recommendation that council note the engineering design for rehab works on John Street, Kingeroy has commenced. Thank you for that. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Froloff. Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.6, Kent Street, Kingeroy Street and Harley Street footpaths at 45. We'll rely on you again. Thanks, GM.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. We are missing James, who's the author and got his head right across it, but we did use the opportunity in this report, Mayor and councillors, to give some strategy, because if I recall correctly, we had prioritisation here. We considered them for outer year funding under, I think it was Safe ST from memory, and as a result of reconsideration of the priority there and the funds we needed, a report was requested. We've used this opportunity, Mayor, to give some background specifically in relation to Kingeroy of the footpath network, conceived future projects and those which we have currently funded, which is a very small minority. So I think the report is just for your noting. It should provide some nice background information for your consideration, and of course, when we're considering future works in this capital area, we would be reliant back on this same information. So it's a good report to provide some background info. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, GM. Floor's open for discussion. Any questions? No? Okay, well, the recommendation is that council note the Kent Street, Kingeroy and Harley Street, Kingeroy footpath projects have been removed from the proposed Safe ST funding program and added to the forward capital footpath works program for future budget considerations by council. Further, both Kent and Harley Street proposed footpaths are ranked as Category 1 and of high importance in footpath hierarchy due to the proximity of high volume pedestrian generating facilities requiring infrastructure to support active movement. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Jones. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 6.7, Kingeroy Roundabout, cost-benefit analysis of roundabout upgrade program at 62. We're with you again, GM. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and I very much was looking over my shoulder for my learned colleague, Mr. Darcy, and I don't think he's arrived yet, so I will give it my best shot. This work specifically focuses on a long-term view of alternate treatments for roundabouts. And in developing it, I would acknowledge the assistance from my Parks colleagues and their General Manager in putting this report together. So you can see a quite detailed look at a long-term analysis of a grass treatment of a roundabout, a landscaped treatment of a roundabout with a tree, or a concrete treatment. And in some ways, it's a bit of a theoretical comparison, because you've got the ongoing early maintenance costs offset by high capital costs when you compare a vegetated roundabout compared to a concreted one. And what you see, probably not that surprising, is that the high capital cost of a concrete infill takes a long time to pay itself off in the lower maintenance cost. By comparison, we have higher operational costs in the management of vegetation in the roundabout, be it grass or vegetated plantings with maybe a feature tree. What it really comes back to then is for the short to medium term, those vegetated treatments avoid the very high capital costs associated with the concrete, and from an economic perspective, would be higher value. I would stress that in relationship to some of these things, consultation, as council's practice has been in relationship to these treatments, is highly important. So the amenity provided in some cases is significant, and there's been significant focus by this council in relationship to it, which led to the report in the first place. So the report really is for your noting. And it does note that, landscaped areas with thick ground cover, protecting their planting, does reduce the month by month investment in the operational costs and the traffic control and all of those things. It does have a higher cost, but all of these treatments, you can see, have their merits depending on over what time frame you consider them. But certainly I was encouraged in relationship to our operational costs of them, and particularly for mulched treatments. And General Manager Peter, jump in any time you wish, but in relationship to that, I was very much encouraged that you can certainly justify on a long-term view those more aesthetic treatments. They are, from an economic perspective, quite supportable. But I think it's really fair reference.
Thank you, General Manager. Open for discussion, committee. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just quite flabbergasted at some of the maintenance, because the concrete roundabout, it says that it's costs $1,232 per annually, and the high pressure cleaning, like, I don't know if we only do our footpaths once a year. I can't imagine that we would be high pressure cleaning roundabouts. So that's why I just was really, really surprised to see that we actually go out and pressure clean roundabouts, and that there would be so much weed removal and spraying of roundabouts, because like I've looked at that roundabout in Fisher Street and thought that we should replicate that right across our region, because I never see any grass going through it. It's done really well. It looks really professional. It always looks clean and tidy. And when I see, like in Wandai, I travelled through there regularly, often see 3 or 4 people, like staff, in the roundabout with witches' hats, all sorts of issues, because it's in a highly trafficked area. I can't believe that it would be less to maintain, where we have to weed and look after and go, even the grass roundabout, to have to mow it, compared with the concrete one. I would have thought concrete would have been virtually no maintenance, whereas the others would have been, the maintenance there would have been much, much higher. So I just can't work out how those figures have come, how we've collated those figures, because to me they don't add up. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Certainly, I think we looked at what should we do in relation to maintenance going forward, because I think the councillor's point's quite correct. And resulting from that, some of our concrete roundabouts with broken curbs and different things around them don't look appealing. So I think your point is correct. What we've allowed for here is even replacement of the curb around that concrete infill at a period, to try and keep some aesthetics. But if I draw your attention to page 63, I think the numbers do confirm what you're saying, councillor, that concrete roundabouts certainly cost a lot less than a mowed facility that you're talking about, and cost effectively in terms of yearly maintenance. That landscaped roundabout with the heavy mulching comes up as being the most cost effective from a yearly maintenance perspective. But I'm relying on my colleagues from the Parks area to assist with that. So I don't know whether, Peter, you'd like to, General Manager, you'd like to add?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think obviously even with the pressure cleaning, you still got to have that traffic control. So there is still a cost, and as GM has stated, that is, what we should be doing is keeping them in that state. We should be doing that pressure cleaning, so that's why that's been costed in. We'll concede that it does, the option 2, the landscape and the annual operational, to me does look low too. So as you've noted, and that, so because it will still have the same traffic control issue. So that's probably something that we do need to. Probably would be worth double checking that figure.
Councillor Schumacher.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great report. Great to have this information before council, because I know we've all talked about opportunities to save in terms of our operational budget, and certainly for me, I think in some ways free up our parks and garden resources so that they can actually focus on our parks and gardens. That's certainly my thinking. I think it's good to have this context, and I do note the opportunity to sort of develop. I understand Rome's not built in a day, and bricks are laid every day, and this for me, infrastructure has been in place for a very long time. It hasn't had any sort of renewal for a long time. I know in driving around Kingeroy, there are terribly taffy signs. The curb has not been painted or refreshed in a very long time, and I know residents, particularly around Kingeroy, have noted that. And when you look at how beautiful their front yards are and how much work and pride they put into their homes, I think it's kind of sad to see they drive past areas that are overgrown with weeds or have certainly deteriorating infrastructure. So I do think this is an area we need to consider. This is infrastructure that I would like to see us put together a small program over a number of years to try to reduce those operational costs and improve the aesthetics and the livability of our town and of our streets. I think the comparison, all in all, it's demonstrated that yes, well, there is some upfront initial capital cost to do these things. Over the longer term, there is a reduction in the operational expense. And as Councillor Duff has said, there's not really clear service level delivery for some of this infrastructure. At the moment, we're not washing it. We probably should be. We haven't painted any new white around the edge of it or fixed the broken curb. We probably should be. So it's good to have an understanding of, in an ideal world, what would we do? And then I guess factor our budget around what we can afford and try to find a balance there. I think all in all, though, for me, the reason why I put this request forward to council was I have seen in areas where, in highly populated areas, where I imagine traffic is extreme, areas like North Lakes, for instance, where they've built roundabouts and they have filled it with those heavy plant coverings. It's not pretty flowers or anything like that. It's dense, heavy, thick land covering, the kind of plant covering that doesn't allow weeds and things to go through. And if they do, it happens on the odd occasion when you have to go out and check it. And it's just interesting to read here in the report that, you know, that option actually would reduce our operational costs quite significantly. And for me, I guess that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the fact that our staff, and I've talked to some of our parks and garden staff who work in this area, are putting out phones and traffic management. It's taking a number of staff to maintain some of these areas, and I think it is an area that we need to build a plan around. I think the report's great for information. I think I would like to see in our capital discussions and our funding discussions an opportunity to tackle some of these things and to work to chip away at them. I recognise to do all 14 roundabouts in Kingeroy is unrealistic. At the same time, but perhaps, you know, we can work out a strategy whereby we might start with a few and take those learnings and move from there. So thank you for the report and thank you for the context. I think it's wonderful. I do think some of these figures are probably a little inflated for some areas, but maybe give us an idea anyway in terms of what the cost benefit would be to make that capital expense and initial capital expense, but certainly save on those operational costs. So yeah, thank you for the work that's gone into this. And I think when it comes to budget discussions, I know certainly for the residents of Kingeroy, this is something that they see regularly. And they're very tired and something needs to be done about them. Thank you.
Further speakers? No. Okay, so the recommendation is that council notes the report provided to assist council in making future decisions regarding roundabout and median infrastructure with a strategic focus throughout the region. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, second Councillor Shoemaker. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.8 is the audit process and tracking of costs for road maintenance contract and road performance contract at 68. Manager Searle, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is for your information only. The request was to provide some information back to council regarding the audit process, tracking of costs for RMPC and RPC. So RMPC, Road Maintenance Performance Contract, is our annual maintenance contract we have with Department of Main Roads to look after their highways within our region. The RPC, the Road Performance Contract, that's the old terminology for it. These days they're called TICs, Transport Infrastructure Contracts, and they relate to specific road construction projects that we have. We currently don't have any TICs at the moment. We do have our annual RMPC with Main Roads. So just briefly, it's an annual contract, the RMPC, and council officers will assess and determine the schedule of rates, which is part of the contract, and look at the quantity applicable to each activity. And that's primarily based on historical experience and findings from joint inspections as part of the submission of the offer. And I've included in Appendix 1 just what the actual contract looks like. So it's essentially a graphic long list of all the various tasks, unit rates that we that column's blank, but unit rates that we determine, and an associated quantity, which gives you the total amount, and then from there you end up with a total figure of around about $2 million, which is what our annual allocation is in rough terms. So under the contract, we carry out work throughout the year by creating works orders, and crews are required to provide actual quantities of the works completed for the various works orders, submission of monthly claims based on the quantities and the applicable rates. Year-to-date spending against each activity is checked while preparing the monthly claim to ensure costs and quantities are accurate, and if there's any need for budget movements among those different activities. So council meets monthly with TMR, and we discuss various aspects of the contract, which includes contract performance program, upcoming works, budget, and any new issues that we find, either TMR or council staff. In terms of audits, probably the last paragraph there is the most relevant there. Formal audits, external audits are undertaken by Queensland Audit Officers, and that's typically at a fairly high level in terms of the treatment of contract, revenue, expenditure, etc. But in terms of our specific contract, we do have a third-party quality assurance accreditation, and part of the external audit that we do for that typically would look at the process of the contract and also claiming of works, as well as our internal schedule that forms part of the quality management system. We also have staff that look at our processes, which would also include the process of claiming and the contract for RMPC and the TIC, and that's what you see in attachment number 2, which is straight out of our quality management system. It's just a process of how we manage that contract, and that's the basis of the report, Council.
Thank you, Manager. Further discussion from the committee? Just with that, for clarification of the community, Council has contract with Department of Transport and Main Roads Some of those will be for minor works, others will be for major maintenance items on the state-controlled network. Where that happens, council has to work with DTMR, consult with them in terms of the scope and the type of work to be undertaken, Kevin, so I understand it. So while council may complete that work, it is to a large extent subject to advice from DTMR as to the scope of the work when we're repairing particularly major items along our highways. Yeah. So that's just to clarify for the community. Thank you. Okay, so any further discussion? Councillor Schumacher.
Yeah, so just, thank you for the report and thank you for breaking it down. Certainly sometimes I think we speak in so many acronyms. It's just good to have this clarification of how the process works. And I guess a lot of the reason why I'm really interested is making sure we're extracting as much opportunity from the Department of Main Roads to maintain infrastructure in our area. So thank you for the report and the details around how that works through our systems. And I guess I just was looking here. It's good to see the procedure as to how we do that. And my question was just in relation to the actual agreed amount. So we submit these unit rates and the estimated quantity of how much work we're going to do, and then do we negotiate the final amount annually, or do they just give us a nominated amount based on historical data and we just continue to do that? Like, is there an opportunity to get a bigger slice of the pie as things progress, and do we do that? Do we challenge and I guess I'm probably just trying to understand from a service level point of view, are we satisfied, or do we believe, I know we've got an exceptional relationship with DTMR, but do we believe we're getting best value out of that opportunity?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, it's typically a set amount, and there's an expectation that you would set your quantities in particular to meet that final amount. There's always an opportunity to negotiate additional quantities. We're expected to manage that budget throughout the year. There are circumstances where we may, for example, overspend that getting towards the end of the financial year. And so if there's additional allocation required, then that's in conjunction with essentially talking with TMR and notifying them of the budget status. There's also opportunities that come up throughout the year, essentially minor works contracts. So we currently have a minor works contract to undertake gravel resheeting on the Memorandum Brook Road, which is in addition to the RMPC budget amount.
Just a supplementary question. In terms of the actual identification of the maintenance needs, like I see here that there's some information around, pavement repairs and shoulder grading and those sorts of things. So do we rely on asset data from the Department of Main Roads, or do we actually drive these roads with our own ruckus and provide Main Roads with the information about how they need to maintain their network?
Particularly leading into the start of a contract, there's typically a joint inspection of the network, and that's primarily to look at the issues that currently are on the network and how we're going to address those particular ones. So each year you may find the actual quantities on various activities are going to change in accordance with the priorities of that the network at the particular time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manager. Anything further, committee? Further observations? It's been recommended that the report be noted for information. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Froelich, seconded Councillor Shoemaker. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 7.1. Now welcome Councillor Froelich to present her local disaster management water and wastewater portfolio report. Can be found at page 75. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, the local disaster management group update. First, we'll do the COVID one. The South Burnett Local Disaster Management Group continues to share all communication through the Local Disaster Management Group and the supporting agency network to promote vaccination clinics in the South Burnett. Council has been working with Queensland Health and the district to ensure that any local resources or assistance is provided at vaccination clinics where possible. Queensland Reconstruction Authority attended on the 22nd of November 2021 and provided training around disaster recovery funding arrangements. This was provided by our teams on the ground and members of the LDMG, which Councillor Potter and I got to attend. The training is important at this time of year leading into storm and flood season, which we're seeing that definitely at the moment. The disaster management team has also organised Red Cross and Queensland Fire and Emergency Services to provide evacuation centre training to our staff here at Council to ensure our team is well equipped to deal with evacuation centres with a COVID overlay. Appropriate PPE, for example, face masks and hand sanitisers and social distancing in the floor plans. Now for our local disaster for the weather event that we're having here. Our local disaster management group has been brought forward as we had a meeting this morning at 9 o'clock. We're in stand-up mode and a community coordination centre has been set up with all major agencies working closely together during this weather event. A media release has been released and I will read it out now for everyone. The South Burnett Local Disaster Management Group met this morning, Wednesday the 1st of December, to discuss the current wet weather event and localised flooding. Myself as the Chair gave an update acknowledging the multi-agency response over the past 24 hours as emergency services and council attend a number of incidents involving road closures and damage to property. The LDMG continues to operate with full coordination today as further rainfall is occurring and expected this afternoon. South Burnett Disaster Dashboard continues to operate with road closures listed and updated by Council and Queensland Police Services as information is provided. Council monitors over 3,000 kilometres of road network and conditions will change regularly and quickly. The Council and Queensland Police Service are unable to inspect the entire network and inspections are therefore prioritised, and the LDMG encourages the community to report all road conditions to Council on 4189 9100. So please people, if you've got a road condition or a blocked road, don't call your local councillor but ring the 4189 9100. It'll get there quicker, because they'll be prioritising it. QPS advises residents not to drive or walk through flooded waters and avoid unnecessary travel. The LDMG will continue to maintain the dashboard as information is provided and will communicate further updates on major travel routes if conditions can change. I encourage all people to contact 000 in a life-threatening emergency or 13 25 00 for assistance with damage to property. Keep up to date on all road closures, weather warnings, flood warnings and emergency news and the South Burnett Disaster Dashboard. So dashboard.southburnett.queensland.gov.au. And for further information, contact Queensland Council's Disaster Management Team on 1300 789 279 or 4189 9100 or email info@southburnett.queensland.gov.au. And we have another, Councillor Potter and I have another meeting with the LDMG 3 o'clock this afternoon. Now, some of the good news. Key highlights. The water and wastewater team have been busy working on funding submission through building our region's round 6 for off-stream storage of Bitumen water and Goodenbrook. Provisions of the off-stream storage would significantly reduce risk associated with the need to use 100% Goodenbrook source water in periods when Bitumen Dam supplies are offline. In order that normal water production during non-emergent shutdowns of the Bitumen pipeline can be accommodated at the Goodenbrook water treatment plant. The off-stream storage of Bitumen-sourced water is required to ensure that treated water from the plant remains within the limits set by the ADWQG. And as of 12 noon yesterday, we have some dam levels and they are still rising. Bitumen Dam is now at 47.8%. The last 2 weeks have seen the capacity increase from 24.7% to 47.8%, and an increase of 46,966 megalitres. BP Dam is now at 45%. The last 2 weeks have seen the capacity increase from 6.5% to 45%, an increase of 51,856 megalitres. And Goodenbrook Dam is still overflowing at 155 millimetres above the spillway. And Boo Bear Dam is 37%, no change. With the rapid increase in water storage inflows across the region, the water is very dirty and has a very high stability. This is making the treatment process very difficult to operate at full capacity, and some customers may experience some discoloured water. Irregular intermittent discolouring may happen throughout the region. Okay. Yeah. And just for heads up, we've had 122 wastewater requests, 9 from the pump station, wastewater blockages 18, wastewater odour 14, wastewater overflow 15, and other wastewater issues 66. And for the water supply request, we've had 635. Hydrant valve leaks 40, leaking mains 166, pressure or flow of the water 37, water quality 22, water service or meter 206, or other water issues 164. That is my local disaster management water and wastewater portfolio. I'd like to have it accepted through council. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter, thank you. Councillor Potter?
Yeah, thank you. And it's really good to see, as you showed me this morning, Councillor Fryloff, the actual, the levels this morning as of, I think it was about 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock, the BP Dam was at 52.8 and Bitumen Dam was at 55%. So those water levels are just incredible, and the amount of water going into our dams is wonderful. But can I just, as part of the local disaster management group, with Councillor Fryloff, I would just like to say to people, if it's flooded, forget it. It's not worth it. And I think that's something that we as council should be reiterating within our Facebook posts and everything like that. So it's really good to not see Councillor Henson here today, because I know there's issues out there with roads flooding and everything. But that's something I just want people to take care of themselves, because they are more important than getting to work or anything like that. So please take care.
Okay, other comments? Councillor Fryloff.
Sorry, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Potter. I'd also like to reiterate that our emergency services staff, QPS, QAS and the SES and all that, they're all under the pump at the moment. So please, as Councillor Potter said, if it's flooded, forget it. If you don't need to go anywhere, stay home until this is all receded. The rain is beautiful. It's lovely to see all the water around. But please think of the ones that are out there saving lives or trying to save lives around the area, that you think of them before doing something stupid. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fryloff. Just talking there about road closures, if a resident is unsure if a road's closed or is actually safe to travel on, what's the best way to find out that information?
If they go on South Burnett dashboard, we've got all the road closures on there. There's quite a few at the moment. They're all being updated constantly, so through our team. So just please go on to South Burnett dashboard, and they'll have the road closures on there.
Thank you, councillor. So that actually lists the name of the roads on the dashboard. Just had a resident this morning indicate that they couldn't find that, but it does list the roads. Separate section. Okay, we'll communicate that to the community. Thank you. Any further discussions on the matter before we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 8.1 questions on notice are at page 82. We have 3 questions on notice and the responses are provided. 1 and 2, I believe, are infrastructure matters. General Manager, if you could just, any further clarification on those would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think I can expand too much on items 1 or 2. I think they're relatively straightforward, but happy to answer any queries.
Okay, any queries? Clear, thank you. Question 3, any questions on question 3? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do see here in part of the response that we are looking at the project guidelines, the eligibility guidelines for the Preparing Australian Communities Fund, and note that there's been a note here made that something like a backup generator for our water pump stations in Kingeroy, should our power system get wiped out, may be a project. However, there were tight time frames and staff on leave. So I guess I just wanted to have a discussion, because I certainly recognise any opportunity to get funding like this is good, and just where things are at, if it's an option for us here at council, and if you need anything from council to progress that.
Through you, Mayor Otto, Councillor Shoemaker, it's excellent question, and it's really interesting timing. And it's a bit work in progress. I've not fully briefed the CEO nor my General Manager colleagues. However, I flagged to them that we have, in addition to the couple of major funding programs that have been before council and being considered, we have numerous programs, some of them with very short timeframes. This is one. And it is my intention, with the CEO's concurrence and the support of my fellow General Managers, to come back before General with some further advice. So all I wish to do today is perhaps touch on the programs that we have and what we're doing about it. So the programs that are before our attention are the Bridge Renewal Program, the Heavy Vehicle Safety and Productivity Program, the Preparing Australian Communities Program, which is the one to which you refer. There's the ATSI-TIDS Program and the Queensland Resilience and Risk Reduction Program. There was also a master planning bikeway program, for which we didn't think was so applicable to us. However, it's my intention to put some advice together, because we have closing dates. For example, the Preparing Australia one, it actually is only open for about 30 days, and it closes in January the 6th, I believe. So timeframes are incredibly short. They actually don't fit in our meeting cycle. Our meeting cycle would not permit us to do that. So with the CEO's permission and Council's tolerance, we'll provide you some information. We've nominated internal resources to try and pull information together to do exactly as you suggest, to see what opportunities may exist. What's important is whether we have a co-funding responsibility that with very little notice Council could support, but we'll look at the eligibility and come back to you before General. So the Manager of Water and Wastewater was first out of the blocks looking at that program and said perhaps there's some eligibility there. There are some potential other ones. Some of these programs have very large potential amounts of money available with co-funding. Some of them have grants up to a limited amount of funding. So it's quite interesting. We will go back to our list of capital works that are identified in our forward capital, because they're the ones that have been prioritised to date. So we will be pulling forward proposals out of the programs you have already seen, forward works programs suggestions, because we would want to seek funds against prioritised projects, albeit we have not fully applied the new prioritisation model, and we will not be able to do that in full, but you can see the benefit of being able to do that. But we will use the programs that you've seen before in the development of your capital program where possible, wherever possible.
Yeah, thank you for the update. I think the timeframes for closing of grants like this personally are quite convenient for others and not so much for us. But certainly noting that we are coming up to an election cycle, I think any opportunity to get some things for the South Burnett into these programs is really important. So thank you for the work that you and your staff are doing in terms of trying to identify projects that might fit into these areas. And I look forward to the general where we have a little bit more information around how we proceed. So thank you for taking the question and running with it. And I look forward to the update.
Okay, it's recommended that responses to the questions raised be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Froeloff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, move to 9.1. It's recommended that the Council considers the confidential reports listed below in a meeting closed to the public in accordance with Section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012. 9.1, water reconnection at Lot 1 SP 256027 4 Meek Street, Kingeroy. This matter is considered to be confidential under Section 254J-F of the Local Government Regulation.
Sorry, do I go out or?
I know, Councillor, you've been able, sorry, my apologies. Council has voted to allow you to remain in the meeting for this matter. And the Council is satisfied that discussion of this matter in an open meeting would, on balance, be contrary to the public interest, as it deals with matters that may directly affect the health and safety of an individual or a group of individuals. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Froeloff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. I'll now close the open meeting and we'll go into a confidential meeting. Okay, Council, now resume the open meeting. We're attending to item 9.1, where it is recommended that the committee recommends to Council that the customer pays the current connection charge as per the adopted fees and charges at $1,040. Do we have a mover? Councillor Froeloff, second to Councillor Jones. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. I'll now call the meeting to close at 12:08 p.m. Thank you all for your attendance and have a wonderful rest of day.